Hey everybody, welcome back to our old series, Under the Loupe. My name is Marco Nicolini with Grand Caliber, and we're gonna review 3 watches today. And before we get started, I'm gonna run you guys through a quick wrist check of what's on my wrist. So the first watch I wanna talk about that's on my wrist today is a 1675 gold nipple dial from 1972. It is a head only. It actually does have a bracelet, but I decided to take it off for this very sporty look. So typically these watches would come on a oyster riveted bracelet, or they would have come on a Jubilee. Very rarely though, you will actually have seen these come with a factory correct presidential bracelet, which is very rare to find those on. There's a very specific in-link number for that bracelet, but I don't have that watch. This one actually has a Jubilee, and typically they're very loose. So they do stretch out very easily, unfortunately. So 99% of the time when you do see one of these for sale, it's gonna have a pretty loose bracelet. And if it is tight, chances are it's been retightened. And if it hasn't been retightened, then it's probably gonna be very much in like a new old stock condition. And this one here is in average condition. It's definitely been polished. Case is overall thick and even, which is something I look for. The hands don't necessarily match the dial, and there's some lume degradation on the GMT hand, which is unfortunately a common issue with the GMT hands, as they have a lot of surface area for that lume to degrade. Everything else is obviously kosher with this watch. It's very beautiful. To me, this is just the watch to have if you're looking for something vintage and solid gold. To me, it's going to have a lot more character and appeal than, let's say, a 126715 CH&R. So that's just my take on this watch, and like I said, I'm sporting it on the leather strap, as it just feels so much better, and it just wears very well. The very first watch I have to show you guys is one that I'm actually very excited about personally, as I've been very curious to see how these look in person, and that is the 126508 new release Rolex Daytona. This is a solid gold example with the white dial, and we're gonna dive right into it. So let's quickly unbox this guy and see what we have. And there we have it. The biggest differences between the old dial and the new dial is mostly gonna be in the sub dials. And the sub dials are really fantastic on these new Daytonas. They're very thin and they're very Zenith Daytona-esque. So they're really gonna have that appearance that, it's almost like a Zenith Daytona look. They're very skinny rings. They're very, they have a very tight profile. Whereas the old 116508 dials, a lot of them had solid sub dials versus these new thinner rings. And obviously the biggest thing that you'll notice, which is a very, very small detail but a very, very nice touch, is the very small crown between the 6 at the very bottom between Swiss made. So obviously it's very tiny. You really can't see it with the naked eye. It almost feels like it's even smaller than the actual laser edge crown that's in here as well. So otherwise the bezel pretty much remains the same. The case shape is going to pretty much remain the same, and the bracelet is going to remain the same on the solid gold example. The biggest complaint that we got with the old model was that you couldn't really adjust the Oyster Flex so much, but now that the Oyster Flex has now picked up the glide lock clasp, you now have that option with the Oyster Flex model. So that's a great upgrade there too. And then in the stainless steel model, the biggest upgrade too is the case shape. So now you have this type of case shape. So if you look at the side of this watch, you'll see this kind of like, way different case profile, whereas the old model, the lugs were straight out and pointed out. So this one, you have that exact look now, which is kind of cool. It definitely sits differently. I had the opportunity to handle one, and it definitely is very interesting. And also, now that I see the new models in person, again, even the stainless steel dials on the new models kind of look more Zenith Daytona-like. So if you want to take a look at this watch, go to www.grandcaliber.com, look up 126508, and this watch should pop up, and you can definitely read more about it. The next watch we have here is a very, very modern watch, and also a huge upgrade for the Offshore. In my opinion, it looks fantastic. This is going to be the AP26238 Charlie Echo CE. It's for ceramic. So it is a very cool watch. Let's take a look at it. And there you have it. We have the black ceramic AP, which is a new release. They released this around the 30th anniversary. So first thing you're gonna notice is obviously the watch is all black, and it looks extremely stealthy, which I love stealthy watches. That's kind of mostly what I wear. So this is probably an AP I would not mind wearing, because if you don't know watches too well, this doesn't look like much. It just looks like a black watch that you would kind of commonly see in like G-Shocks or so forth. And people may not even realize from a distance that it's even ceramic. So It is made entirely of ceramic except for the case back in the clasp, which are made out of titanium, because obviously you don't want to make a case back out of ceramic because, as you know, ceramic can break and be compromised. So it is a very unique watch to wear in a sense, because if you do drop this, you could actually shatter it, not just chip it, but it can actually shatter, which I've seen before, which is wild. So it is a very sensitive watch to wear, so you kind of have to be a little more careful. But on the flip side, you really can't scratch it. I mean, it's very difficult to scratch. You could wear this watch for months on end and it'll just appear to be brand new if you're one of those type of person, if you're one of those people that doesn't necessarily like bang their watches into things, or you don't wear them very rough. So if it's one thing I noticed about this watch right away that stood out, is the fact that on a stainless steel version of this watch, you would not have all these holes along the bracelet, but on this model you do, because it is ceramic. So they just kind of had to design it that way, which is interesting, because if you wanted to size it really, really small, I guess you could. So it's definitely quite an interesting watch. It's a very simple looking watch with a lot of bang for the buck. I mean, it is a very expensive watch as well. Current market value of this watch right now is roughly around $120,000. I believe that's what we're asking for this watch. But you know, it could range from a little less for pre-owned and maybe a little more on a call. If you had to source this watch from another dealer, you're probably gonna pay around $125,000. All right, so let's talk about the movement real quick. The one thing you're gonna find on the back of this watch is a 4404 with a 70-hour power reserve, and it beats at 28.8, which is the exact same beat rate as a Rolex. So you definitely have a good power reserve there. It'll definitely go through the weekend without wearing it. So you could drop this off on a Friday and pick it up on a Monday and it'll still be telling time. That's gonna wrap it up for this AP. If you guys love this watch, let me know in the comments below. If you hate it, also let me know. I definitely want y'all's feedback on this watch, because I'm kind of torn with it. I do like it a lot. The only thing that personally bothers me is this bracelet. I don't like those holes. To me, I would rather them just have like a normal sized, you know, a normal way to size a bracelet compared to the steel. But this one it kind of just cheapens the watch, in my opinion. But everybody out there has their own opinion, and let me know in the comments below. All right, for our next piece, I saved the best for last because it is just a big baller piece, and you guys know how it is with Richard Mille. They do not cut corners when designing something crazy. So we have the Richard Mille RM30 with a factory set diamond case. And let's get this watch out of here. What we have here is a titanium and white gold diamond set Richard Mille RM030, which is, for the most part, a easier Richard Mille to get into, as their price points aren't as crazy as what it could be with some other models. This price point for this watch is around $235,000 gray market. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the retail price is. It's probably not too far off from that price, as right now a lot of these entry-level RMs are actually trading about more or less retail for some models, not all. So as you guys know, the way Richard Mille builds their cases, a lot of the times it's going to be either one type of precious metal, or they'll combine it with two different materials. And in this case, they've set the top and bottom of the watch with white gold, and the sides of them are going to be titanium. The side of the case is going to be made in titanium to support the entire watch. Personally, I would prefer to have a full white gold watch if I was gonna, just for the weight. But like I said, this is a very big watch. It's very chunky, to say the least, but it is quite interesting. And something I discovered about this watch after handling it is the top side of this is all diamonds, but the side of it here, it appears they used black diamonds, which is just quite interesting. I wonder why they did that, but they did it anyways. It's kind of cool. You have a lot of polished sides here with the satin finished on the titanium. You know, this is coupled with this newer type strap. These straps are very desirable for the RM30s and the RM11s. That new vent style is what everybody's going after, versus the old style bracelet or old style rubber straps. And it is a butterfly type clasp, so you will get that, you know, comfort out of that, because it doesn't necessarily like rub up on your wrist like that. So it stays kind of flush and even, which I like. You know, I think that's the way it should be. Butterfly clasps to me are the way to go when it comes to a strapped watch. So to touch base on what this dial composes of, it's basically it's a skeletonized watch, but most of the skeletonized features are mostly going to be on the sides. It's not skeletonized like a Bubba Watson, where the whole thing is basically all the gears are exposed. So you almost do have kind of a dial, but it's a clear dial. And what the watch composes of is just the date, the time, and a power reserve indicator. And it does have an on-off for the winding, so it'll tell you when it's fully wound, and then it basically says that when it says it's in off mode, that just basically is telling you that the clutch is disengaged. One other thing to notate about this watch is the movement is very interesting. It's an RMAR1 movement, which is something they use in all the RM30s. They don't really go, I mean, they're not gonna have like the same type of descriptive nature that Rolex uses, like a 3135 per se. Their version is just calling it an RMAR1, and so on. Like 6702s have different caliber movements, which are very interesting, and they all serve different purposes. But it's a very thick watch, if you can see there. I mean, it's definitely not a very comfortable watch to wear if you have a smaller wrist. This is definitely something to wear if you have a bigger wrist, and I guess this is definitely a party watch in my opinion. It's definitely very blingy, and it shows, and it definitely tells you it's worth a lot of money just at a glance. It's not necessarily my style, but hey, if that's how you roll, that's how you roll. One thing to notate is, like, I mean, I get this asked all the time when it comes to factory set RMs. Why do they even put titanium in between it? It obviously saves cost, but another big one is you really can't set diamonds in titanium. It is extremely difficult, so they just set it in the white gold, so it makes it a lot easier to work on, and it just kind of looks better too, because in between the diamonds are polished white gold prongs, which definitely kind of gives it that more shinier look, and it kind of makes the diamonds work together, as opposed to, like, you can't really, like, at a glance see how big or small the diamonds are, because everything's working together to just give you that shine. And this watch is a complete set. It's a 2022 model, like new, and I mean, it's almost in perfect condition. I really can't see any signs of wear and tear on this watch. Even the strap is perfect. And I'll say one thing, you'll know a used RM right away when they have these bright colored straps, as they take stains on very easily. So they do mark up fairly easy. So if you do see one in the wild, and if it was a yellow strap, you'd probably see like black blemishes all over it, and it just kind of stands out. And to me, it's just the way the rubber's made that just kind of it definitely takes on wear and tear, and this one has zero. Definitely a cool watch, definitely a very fun watch to look at. Not one I'd personally wear, but hey, everybody has their taste, and this one just isn't it for me. That's gonna wrap it up for Under the Loupe. If you like this type of content, drop a comment below, let me know, and that's going to do it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Until next time, we'll see you then.